It's time for another daily drop here on TarHeelIllustrated.com, or if you are watching us on our YouTube channel, that is Tar Heel Illustrated. I'm THI publisher Andrew Jones, rolling solo with you today as I dive into a UNC basketball topic that I find very, very interesting. Before I do that, very quickly, just a quick reminder, head on over to our website, tarheelillustrated.com. For just $8.33 a month, you can be a Carolina insider too. What do you get out of that? All of our inside intel. So much of our content, most of it is not free. You don't find it here on the podcast. You don't find it on free front page content. It's in premium content, and all of it is on our message boards in some capacity. In addition to that, you get to hang out in a community of people like you. You're a passionate Carolina fan and you struggle finding people that could talk about the Tar Heels at your level of interest and knowledge. Head on over to our boards. That'll never be a problem over there. Lots of passion, lots of knowledge, and big time Carolina people on our football and basketball premium message boards. Anyway, today's topic is basketball. And I think it's a very fascinating one. And I'm looking forward to asking Hubert Davis about this next time we get a chance to talk to him. And that's the fact that this team has 5 captains on the roster. The 2023-24 Tar Heels have 5 captains on the roster. Well, that I'm not saying that Hubert Davis has named 5 captains. This is something that is a product of the transfer portal era and the fact that there are still players in college that are affected by the COVID eligibility year, getting an extra year to play. Cormac Ryan is a perfect example of that. So who are the 5 captains? Well, let's look at it. Cormac Ryan was a captain at Notre Dame, and he was an excellent captain. In fact, if you go back and look at some stuff that Mike Bray said after Ryan's last home game at Notre Dame, he just oozed praise about the kind of leader Cormac Ryan was. Jalen Withers was a captain at Louisville. And Paxton Wojcik was a captain at Brown. Now, I have seen all 3 of these guys play in college. I've covered games they played in. I saw Wojcik when he played at Brown in Chapel Hill. I've seen Withers 4 times in person at Louisville, and I've seen Ryan 6 times in person, 5 at Notre Dame, and once actually when he was a freshman at Stanford, he scored 14 points in the Dean Dome for the Cardinal that night. So I'm going to quickly outline a couple of things that stood out about each of these guys, watching them in person, why it made sense they were captains for their teams, and how they could bring those attributes to the current Tar Heels. And by the way, the other 2 Tar Heels on this roster that have been captains are RJ Davis and Armando Bacot. So let me start with Cormac Ryan. Well, it's a no-brainer. If you follow ACC basketball, and if you're a junkie and you watch all the games or as many as you can, inevitably you saw Notre Dame play a lot last year. You saw them a lot the year before. It is not hard to look at a Notre Dame basketball game the last couple of years and figure out who the captain is or who the captain was. And it was Cormac Ryan. Cormac Ryan is a fanny slapper. And every good team needs a fanny slapper. In fact, I remember asking Hubert 2 years ago who the fanny slapper was in a team, and he's like, fanny slapper? And he understood what I meant, but he probably hadn't heard that term in a long time because sometimes I throw old school terms out there. But Cormac Ryan is a fanny slapper. You need a guy that's going to whack a dude on the butt, theoretically, and say, get your head in the game. Ryan is that kind of guy. He's also an uplifting leader. I have seen personally firsthand examples of Cormac Ryan going to a teammate who made a mistake and talking to him. I've seen in one instance, I believe it was last year when Carolina was making a push, and Carolina had that horrible first half in South Bend. And the second half, the Tar Heels were making a push. Mike Bray calls a timeout. And after the team talks to Bray on the bench, Ryan gathered them in front of the bench, just the 5 going on the court, kind of a little circle, arms around one another, and Ryan was barking something at him. They went back on the court and played. Carolina won the game. That doesn't take away from Ryan's leadership. Jalen Withers is someone whose leadership, I think, was a little bit different than Ryan's. I don't believe he's as vocal, at least as was with Louisville. And even though Notre Dame only won one more ACC game last year, I think the Irish were a lot more organized than Louisville was. So sometimes engaging Withers' leadership, or L. Ellis, or whoever it was, the other captain that was, whoever the other captain was at Louisville, they were so disorganized as a team, it was kind of hard to tell. So in looking back at Withers and watching him play, some of the examples of leadership, it was more a lead by example kind of thing on the floor, how he went about things. Those are the things that I remember about Withers. And a perfect example of the kind of guy he is, where I'm playing at this level, I'm busting my butt at this level, you need to as well, is if you go back to the last play of regulation 2 years ago when Carolina was at Louisville. It was the game where the fans were irate. They were throwing stuff on the court. I got hit in the head with a cup or a bottle or a plastic bottle or something like that. Got some spit and some other junk. In fact, I remember, Jacob Turner will remember this, I remember doing the Three Things video from Press Row. Jacob's back home. We're hooked up through Zoom. And Press Row, where the TV people and where the main TV broadcasters were, reeked of beer. That's how nasty it was that night. But go back and look at the last play of regulation. Look at how Jalen Withers left his man and then blocked RJ Davis's shot to send the game into overtime. That's the kind of leadership that I've seen from Jalen Withers. He's a guy that played 100% all the time last year in a miserable situation. A miserable situation. Any of the Carolina fans watching and listening to this that are old enough to remember how bad the 8-20 season was in 2002, it was worse last year for Louisville, far worse. But Jalen Withers always gave 100%. Jalen Withers was a guy that would hit the floor going after a ball. He's a guy that would provide help side defense. He did a lot of those little things, played with energy at all times, and that's why he was a captain at Louisville, and he will bring that to the Tar Heels. Paxton Wojcik is another energy guy. In fact, when we spoke with Hubert Davis in July at his summer press conference, the first thing he said about Paxton Wojcik when he was talking about the transfers that were coming in, he said Paxton is a really good player at getting guys together, like at the free throw line, at barking to them and just organizing on the court. And that's what I remember seeing at Brown. I mean, his father's a coach. He was an assistant coach for Matt Doherty at Carolina on that 2002 team, by the way. His dad is currently an assistant under Tom Izzo at Michigan State. So he's kind of sees the game through that lens. And a big part of that is understanding the importance of getting guys around you, of galvanizing, of communicating, making sure everyone's on the same page. And you can see that if you go watch some film of Brown games. You could see on dead balls, Wojcik is always talking to teammates, and that's part of leadership. So what you've got here is you've got three guys who have shown leadership as team captains in different ways. And I think they're all different ways than how Armando and RJ go about it, but they bring that to this team. And even if none of them are captains at Carolina, they bring that. It's a little bit of gravitas, a little bit more gravitas. It's not just that they're older players, but they're leaders. They're organizers. They're galvanizers. They're guys that understand what the other four on the floor are supposed to do, and they have no problem communicating that to their teammates on the floor. So I think 5 captains on one college basketball team, which to my knowledge, I don't have any examples of ever being around a team that's had that before, is a fascinating element among many of the roster that Hubert Davis has put together for this coming basketball season. Remember, guys, go on over to our site, just $8.33 a month. You can be a Tar Heel Insider too and hang out in an awesome community that will keep pulling you back and pulling you back and pulling you back. Just $8.33 a month. That is less than anything you get basically to drive through these days. So it's a drop in the bucket. Anyway, I'm AJ. Appreciate you guys stopping by. Looking forward to seeing you next time. Thanks.